was a dark, damp place. Time had passed, and he couldn't really remember how long he had been there. He was old now. And with the shackles on his wrists and ankles, it was hard to get comfortable. His muscles were weakened from inactivity. And so from time to time, he would shift his weight, trying to get comfortable. His eyesight was dim, and he could barely see a strand of light that was shining through a small opening. And other than some guards talking and walking around outside, all was pretty much quiet. And he was left alone with his thoughts. And in the boredom of the moment, he focused his eyes toward his feet. These old, tired feet, calloused and rough, nails yellow and gnarled. Yeah, old feet, you and I, we've been through a thing or two. And his mind began to reminisce back to when he and his feet had begun the journey to follow. He could still recall the sensation and the feel of the mud squishing up between his toes underneath the water of Galilee. He was tending nets. He was a fisherman. Until that one unforgettable day when the master shows up with an invitation. Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. Yeah, old feet. Life was never the same after that. And his thoughts trailed off. He shifted his weight again to change the pressure points. And he still couldn't help but notice his feet. His feet that had carried him from place to place, following the Master, doing ministry. They were in a boat out on the sea. And someone spotted what was thought to be a ghost. Suddenly they were all afraid. And then they heard the voice, "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." Lord, if that's you, let me come out to you on the water. Come. Yeah, old feet, I can still remember the sensation of the water churning under my feet. Man, walking on water, can you believe it? But I also remember that sinking feeling and the hand of the Savior to save. Yeah, old feet, we've seen a thing or two, you and me. He moves the shackles on his wrists, makes some more adjustments. His mind wanders to that final week, the upper room, where once again, his feet were the focus. Now, Jesus has the basin and the towel, and he recalls his argument with the master. No, no, Lord. But after a few words of patient explanation, Lord, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. He could still feel the gentle touch of the Savior. He could still feel the warmth of the towel. Looking back, old feet, it's unbelievable. He shifts again, and on the screen you see a picture of what is exactly the cell where Peter was. Trying to get comfortable, but still in the mood to reflect. Oh, how I wish I could be in his presence again. Oh, feet, how I wish we could walk together again with the Master. And then, of course, he remembers another time shortly thereafter when his feet had him by a fire. He was warming his hands and his feet. Then someone thought they recognized him. Hey, you're one of them. No way, not me. You're mistaken. One of the servants of the high priest, who was a kinsman, whose ear Peter had cut off, said, "Hey, man, didn't I see you in the garden with him?" No way, man. He denied him again, and immediately the cock crew. And Peter, in this dark dungeon, could still remember that piercing gaze of the Lord looking straight through his soul. How well he remembered his feet now carrying him away from the warmth of the fire and away from the warmth of the Savior. It still brought tears to this tough fisherman's eyes. Yeah, old feet, we've seen a thing or two, you and me. And then, just then, his thoughts were interrupted with the sound of footsteps. And the soldiers came, and they were gentle with the old man. Come on, old man. It's time to go. And they unshackle this salty fisherman, helping him steady himself and get his legs underneath him. And they lead him up out of the cell into the bright sunlight, and for a moment he was blinded from its brightness. It had been a while since he had been out in the sun. And as the old eyes of the man adjusted to his surroundings, he drank it all in. Dogs barking, children playing, colors. Even with his aging eyesight, those colors looked so good. He'd forgotten how beautiful things were. Come on, old man, it's time to go. They were helpful. They had kind of come to like the old man. He had grown on them. And they knew that he wasn't a flight risk, so they let him take his time as they were moving toward the place. And when they finally arrived, old man, you know You know what we've got to do. He says, yeah, I know, but I have this request. I am not worthy to die as he died. Place me, please, upside down on the cross. And the soldiers complied. And as they place Peter on the cross upside down, and as they move the cross into its upright position, the blood rushes to his head. And for a brief moment of clarity, he can see better than he's ever seen before, and he's staring up at this bright blue sky. And there they are. Those old, worn, ugly, calloused, gnarly feet. Yeah, old feet. Here we are. We've seen a thing or two, you and me. And now, as it ends up, you're closer to heaven than I am. Isaiah 52 and verse 7. How beautiful on the mountains are the feet of the messenger who brings good news, the good news of peace and salvation, the news that the God of Israel reigns. You didn't know it. But this morning, you've got beautiful feet. You've been called by God to be messengers to bring good news of salvation. Now, if we're honest, the feet that are in this room have seen some pretty rough terrain. Some of our feet are worn and weary, but in spite of that, as a messenger of the gospel, you have beautiful feet. And this morning, as we celebrate the ordinance of humility, and as we wash one another's feet, would you consider the journey as you're washing your partner's feet? Consider the journey that those feet have been on, the journey that those feet have trod. And would you pray for the one to whom those feet belong? Bless them. Encourage them. Because the feet that you'll hold in your hands, the feet that you will wash, and the feet that you will dry are beautiful